Hello ladies, I hope all is going well with you today. Welcome to Homemakers Radio. If you're new here, you can subscribe to my blog where you will see the video when it comes up, and when your notification comes up, you will also be able to watch the video right there. And I don't have comments on the channel, but I do have comments where you can watch it, and I will leave a link for you if you'd like to go there. So also, if you're new here and you don't want to leave a comment through the process, or you're having difficulty with it, you can email me and tell me, and I will put it on the comment section. This is designed for you to listen as you work. Do you remember the olden days? We used to turn the radio on. Our mothers used to turn the radio on, and back in the 1950s, and they would wash dishes and look out their kitchen window and listen to the radio, sing along, and it's always nice to listen to something. I can get through half of The Quiet Man and about a third of Wives and Daughters on certain jobs, such as if the kitchen needs a major overhaul. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice to listen to something? I actually listen to videos, but I thought it might be nice to listen to someone talking a little bit about the things that might motivate you. And I thought, if I had a chance to go to a class, what would have motivated me? What would have helped me? I've been to so many ladies' lectures, ladies' days, church things for ladies that had no value at all except for the fellowship, which is nice, but you come home and you still don't quite have the tools you need to keep up with things and to feel stable and to feel organized and to raise nice children and have a nice family memories. And this is what we need. And so I decided, well, I would just talk about the things that I would have liked to have someone talk about if I had attended something. The beauty of this is it is like having company, and I don't edit a thing. If I make any mistakes, it's just the same as if we were having a conversation, and we kind of filter out each other's mistakes. So I don't want to spend too much time editing, and it's just supposed to be as though you were listening to someone who was walking beside you in the kitchen and standing at your elbow and keeping you company. You know, we're so isolated sometimes, and I think now that so many more people are staying home, they're realizing what it's like and the sacrifice we make and the hard work that we do. I don't think you're going to hear people disparaging the homemaker anymore, or the homeschooler, or the person that does things at home. I know even hair dressing and hair cutting. People used to say, well, I don't understand why you don't go to the hairdresser. Well, it would mean time away from home at an appointment, and it would mean I'd lose that much more time in the things that I'd really like to do. So I learned to do some things. I used to learn to cut my boys' hair, and my daughter and I learned to dress our own hair. And we in those days we had books, we had things we could learn from. And so it's nice if we're home now, and a lot of people are home, and they're starting to realize this is not some lazy, simple thing that people are doing. It's hard work, and we also are experiencing a wonderful time, really, because now we're with our families more, and this is where our families are going. It's more comfortable to go home than to go somewhere else. There's so many restrictions on things out in the public, and at home you can really enjoy each other. That's what I like about it. So before you go to about your work, there are two things that I want to present, and one is the way you dress has so much to do with how you feel about what you're doing. And I wrote some scant notes on it. The first thing you want to do, first thing we'd like for you to do, is go get dressed before you start listening to the rest, because it gives you a starting point. It gives you a firm beginning. And you might think I'm a little overly dressed. Well, I dressed up for you so that when I'm talking to you, and also made me feel a little bit more purposeful in the message that I'm going to leave with you. So I would wear an apron over this as I worked. I'm digging a little further in my closet now, and I'm wearing some things that we're saving to go somewhere or go on a trip. And so this is the best trip I have ever been on. I have been home since July the 4th, when I decided I was just not going to go anymore. And it was a convenient time to do it because everybody would think, oh, it's because of the political circumstance or the health issues that I'm staying home. But I have always wanted to try it. I've always been fascinated with the watching videos of people who have stayed alone or stayed somewhere in a remote place and how they manage from day to day. And I had always wanted to do it at home. Now my home is interesting and there's a lot to do, and I'm on property and there are other things going on. I do go to church, which is right next to my house because I live in the manse, and there's plenty to do over there. There are things to work on over there, and so it's not very isolating. And there are I can go for long walks on a farm road, and I can still drive my car every now and then. I do, but I have not been out there in the public, and I shop online and I'm enjoying it so much. Makes you feel so special having things delivered to you. And I don't miss it. I thought I would. I thought I would get kind of itchy and antsy, but I really have noticed a difference in how I wake up in the morning. I don't wake up with a sense of foreboding or tension or, oh no, another day, what all have I got to do? Because I know that God has given me a whole day at home, and I'm so grateful for that and so happy. And Mr. S does not mind going out for some of the fresh things that I need, but I can also order those, I found out. So your appearance is so important. If you're not dressed yet, please go and get dressed. And I noticed in the olden days, even when we were sick, our mother wanted us to get a bath and get dressed. And while we were in the bathroom, she would change the sheets and pillowcases. And when we got back into bed, it seemed like we'd recovered a little bit. And we rested better, and it helped in our recovery. So if you will get dressed, I think you'll feel more motivated. And motivation is one of the things I think that God wants us to have, because it's a sign of gratefulness for being alive, for being here and enjoying this wonderful creation. Now before you go, I want to show you my teacup, and it doesn't actually go with anything here, but I had shown you this before, and I'm recycling everything because I now have like 4 times as many videos as I do teacups. This is the pumpkin-shaped teacup that had the leaves on it. You have to be left-handed to drink out of it because that's the plain side. The other side, it's hard to clean it if you get tea on the leaves. And so I decided, well, just give it to the lefties and they enjoy it. And I wanted to show you this because Tea Time magazine this month, if you're not getting Tea Time, even if you don't use tea foods or care for tea, I think it's a delightful monthly issue that comes in, just seems to come at the right time when you're feeling like, oh, I want something different. But they have my teacup on there. See there? So I was excited because I feel like I'm really up there now, aren't I? As they had that teacup there. There is a teapot that goes with it, but I don't collect teapots as much. If you'll notice, there's one in the background here. I don't collect them quite so much because they take up a lot more space, and I'm in the manse and it's limited and it's a little small cottage. I might be tempted to get that one, but I don't know. I have to think about it. I had seen it one time in a shop in Home Goods, and I took the lid off, and you couldn't get your fingers in it to, if you had to clean it or you had to take the tea bag out. Might be a little more difficult. I don't know. I might still be tempted to do it. It doesn't hold very much tea. It wasn't very big. But anyway, I thought you would really enjoy that. And Tea Time magazine is so colorful and so beautiful. And even if you don't collect teapots, it's fun to see them. And they do such a good job teaching. It's a really good teaching about, cooking tea foods, little small bites. So I wanted you to see that. Now, if you want to, you may go and you can listen as you go. And I will, well, wait a minute. I want to teach you one more thing about you can get these notepads at the dollar store. They have kind of colored paper in it. You take out one of these and you put your daily stuff, the quick stuff that you have to do. you know, I've written down here I need to write 2 letters. I need to exercise. I always write floss because if I don't, then I don't have that to check off, and I won't do it. Load the dishwasher, and then there was take the clothes off the line and several other things, and make a salad. And that I will put, I have a bigger notebook here, and this has a master list in it, and it has separate pages for separate rooms, and I will stick that in here with this. And then at the end of the day, if I still feel like I want to do something, I will do one of the other things in this book, but I just throw that away. So you have your short list. This is just your quick list for your daily list. I wanted to show you that. All right, now you can go. You can hang up and call me back after you've got dressed. So ladies, remember about your appearance. And I do have a challenge, and I've already challenged myself, and I've tested it to see if it can be done, to see if it's workable. Yes, I've tested it. So I will tell you what that is. First, I want to talk about preparation for your day. First of all, of course, your short list. Write your short list down and stick it in your bigger notebook or stick it in your apron pocket. I love it because I can check it off. And I love to, you know, sometimes at home, because you're your own boss and there's no time limits and there's no one expecting a quota of you, and you're not punching in a time card, and you're not expecting anybody, it might be hard to get motivated. But the minute you feel unmotivated, go to the list. Make a list of reasonable things that you think you can get done, and the minute you start feeling unmotivated, go and do something on that list. And the whole purpose is to make you overcome your emotions, to make you overcome the feeling that I don't feel like doing it, to go and do it because it's on the list and because it's on today's challenge. That's what I did to myself today. I just made a challenge that I'm going to do this, and I'm going to overcome. I'm going to, what is it called? Trying to think what it is. Goodness, it's something everybody says all the time, and that's mind over matter. You know, mind, make my mind do it. And we had an uncle in the family that would say, mind, do what I tell you to. So he was trying to make himself more motivated, so he would tell himself, do what I tell you to. So that way, if you get to walking around in circles, or you get to feeling a little unmotivated, just go and look at the next thing you have written on the list and just go do it, whether you feel like it or not. And if you can do that, then you have gone a long ways to developing something that the Bible calls self-control. And if you are at home, you're in a sense self-employed, and self-employment requires self-control. You cannot, no self-employed person has ever been successful without self-motivation, and that is backed up by self-control. You don't get motivation without some kind of self-control. It just means get a grip on yourself and go do something that's on here. And of course I have sweep. That's another thing that with lack of motivations, sometimes I'll even look at my list and say, oh, that just looks really boring. If I sweep, I start moving my body and it affects my mind. And the other thing that's on here is exercise. I want to speak a little bit about exercise and why you should include exercise. Now, I found one of the 5-minute sitting in a chair exercises from the Fabulous 50s. Now, not everybody is going to like every exercise instructor that there is. You can always turn off the volume. And one of the problems is people say, well, I can't keep up with her. Well, that's not how you approach it. When I first began, I could only do 2 movements for every 10 that she did. And I have, over time now, I've got to where I can actually touch the floor. You know how you're supposed to touch your toes? Well, I could never, even in my 30s, I really couldn't even touch my toes. I never even tried to keep that up. But I can not only touch my toes, but I can lay my hands flat on the floor now, standing. And the other thing that I have graduated to is, I told you yesterday, I now can hold the 2-pound weight. but I can now sit on my legs. I don't know if you call it sitting on your knees or what, but there was one exercise where you had to sit on your knees, and I had not done it in so long. I thought, oh well, I can sit on my knees. I know what that is. That is where you tuck your legs underneath you, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So what I did is I sat sideways on each side until eventually, gradually, over time, one day I sat on my knees and I didn't even realize I was doing it, but my muscles had gotten so flexible that I was able to sit on my knees. So I feel like I need a prize because I can sit on my knees, I can touch the floor, and I remember that reminds me of Gladys Aylworth in the movie The End of the Sixth Happiness, when she took the little McGuffey readers around to the village, and she had been teaching children how to read. And in one village, there was a scene where she said, "You have all finished the first reader, and now you're ready for the second one. You've done such a good job." And so I feel like, oh, now you can touch your toes. Now you're ready to sit on your knees. So if you have something you need to do, something you need to sort through, something that's really hard for you or bothering you, you need a little company, this is really interesting because I won't bother you and I won't get in your way. And I always used to think that it would be nice to go and hear somebody talk about, how to organize everything, how to be not so stressed out with your housework. But everybody does it their own way. So don't listen to everything that I say. Just get the idea behind it. So one of the reasons you want to get dressed is because it gives you a feeling of being refined, and you also are approaching your homemaking and your housekeeping as a noble career, a noble job, something that is extremely important. As a matter of fact, I often talk about strange people's habits, the way that people are at the end of the video. And one of the things I thought of is that a woman who's very busy and businesslike in her homemaking around people that tend to be critical, they don't target her as bad because she looks like she means business. And I knew a young woman who she didn't really care for housekeeping too much, but her mother had to go to work because her father wasn't in the picture. So she made herself a servant's outfit, a maid's outfit with the cap and everything. And she said it was so much fun to go around and just be the maid of the house and clean it up. And she felt that she had a real job. And of course her mother was paying her. And I just thought that was a good idea too. That is one of the moods that an apron can provide, is when you put that apron on, you know that you mean business, that you're part of running somebody's household and it's your own. When you take your apron off, then you can just be the lady of the house that just had the house cleaned for her. Neat how that works, huh? So look at housework to order to approach your housework. Now you've got your list, and so look at housework as a great endeavor and do it better and give the word homemaker a good name. Now, one of the reasons that people disparaged housewives and homemakers so much in the olden days, even back in the 50s, was because of the few that gave it a bad name by being poor housekeepers, by not caring about their house. And it's so sad because in those days, most people owned their own house, and you would think that they would have that sense of ownership pride and really want to clean it up. But there were a lot of people that didn't care about their houses, and this is where people started to spread this attitude about housekeepers and them being slovenly or lazy. So you can give it a good name. You can do it better and give the word homemaker a good name. And I also have a couple of words here that I don't even recognize. I put a word here and I thought, what was that for? One of the things I think that is very helpful in the process of homemaking is just to thank the Lord. There used to be the thank God for dirty dishes sign on every kitchen. Just thank the Lord, because You know, whether life is dealing us something that's very uncomfortable and not exciting, or whether things are doing well, it just helps a lot, I think, to thank the Lord and just get on with it after that. Because after all, we're alive. We have some strength in our bodies and we can do things. I'm sorry about the light. I came in here and the sun was doing very well, but it's going to fade. But you're just supposed to be listening to me and not looking at me, so you might not mind so much. So thank the Lord, because we are well and we are alive and we are breathing, and our homes are the places that we control. And as far as I know, the state and no tyrannical government can come in and control our homes yet. So we want to be the masters of our own homes and masters of our moods. And so any, in the United States was formed on the fact that people were capable of controlling themselves. They did not need to have a king or a queen to dictate anything to anyone, because we could practice self-control. And there are those who believe that mankind can never have any kind of self-control. It's just impossible. And yet, the Bible teaches us to have it. And there are those who believe that there's a war going on. It's a spiritual war between those who believe that mankind has to be controlled every moment of their lives. Everything has to be controlled. And I think you can get that from reading some of the books that were written about this. But that's not true, because we can all be self-controlled, and it doesn't have to be under somebody else's idea of what they're to be doing or be self-controlled about. We all know what we're capable of, and if we're motivated to love our dwelling place and to make it pleasant, and now that most people are home, they want to. We've noticed more and more people fixing up their houses, and a lot of cosmetic work on the porches, adding porches, adding front gardens, beautiful, what you would call curb appeal to their houses, and then getting new furniture, painting the inside. So because they're home, and when you're home, you want that atmosphere to be beautiful. But what I would say as a homemaker, just do what you can with what you have. If you can't spend money, you can clean it, you can arrange it, you can do things differently. And so give the homemaker a good name, and clean as you go. Pick it up, don't pass it up. That way you don't have to wait for a cleaning day. So as you walk through the house, I learned this from watching someone who was just so excellent at this. She had it bred into her by her Scottish mother, and she would not get up or go to the bathroom without noticing everything down the hall and putting it to right. And even in the bathroom, she'd refold a towel. And she would clean the sink, and so she would clean as you go. She didn't have to have a cleaning day, because it was all. If she saw something that needed to be done, she would just do it. And that was the way we were raised too. We were told to pick it up, don't pass it up. If you see something that doesn't belong, you pick it up and you don't pass it up. And I'm going to talk to you about guiding and guarding the home, which the Bible speaks of, that women are supposed to, Christian women are supposed to guide and guard the home. So I want you to be wary of a couple of things. And these two things are, I guess, sensitive things to talk about, because apparently it's not a popular thing to say. But you have to be wary of people who are trying to make you part with your money, with anything that you have that is any kind of wealth, because they have a scheme and they're going to make you richer. And you have to protect your husband from this sometimes, because the men often can be caught off guard by someone who is looks very successful, has a lot of confidence, and is maybe a little domineering, and they will quickly size up his situation. And most men will say, we're just barely making it, or that's another thing too. I think the men need to be quiet too about their financial situation, because other men can prey on that, P-R-E-Y, and they can come along with a scheme and saying, look, I have an idea. You invest this and I'll invest this, and then we'll both make money and split it, and then you can pay off your bills. And so you have to watch these people. And there are also people that come along and say, that's really dumb to just be a wage slave. That's really dumb. So this scheme that I have will get you out of, you can quit your job, and then of course you can enter into this sales that I'm interested in, and we'll go together, and we can make so much more money. And of course it doesn't always work out that way, and you can protect your husband from being used. I think you have to know how much money you have and where it's going, what bank accounts are in it, how you can access it, and also to warn him to be careful, because these people are not always, they're never for you, and you will never see, your life will not improve often because of it. But this wage slave thing, I got to thinking about that, how easily people fall into that. Well, I don't want to be a wage slave, Well, the Bible does talk about wages. The Old Testament constantly talked about, mentioned wages, and then, the wages of sin is death. But also the parables of Jesus, there was something about wages. The men that came last to work in the field were given the same wage, and so there was nothing wrong with having a wage. And if you have a wage, there's a guarantee that you have work at least, and you have an income coming in. So don't fall for, there's nothing wrong with having something on the side that's a little bit more entrepreneurial, but if you have wages coming in, don't give them up, not even for ministry, because that is another scheme and a trap for many people. And you have to be wary of controllers and schemers that will use up your time also. They feel that, well, the homemaker, she needs to make money, so here is a scheme for her. And then next thing you know, you're taken away from the love and the care you have for your children and your family and your husband while you make money. And that's easy to happen. All that has to happen is somebody says, we're going to have a craft table for autumn or for spring. Do you want to contribute? You can go halvesies with me on the table. The table is so many dollars, you pay half, and bring all your homemade stuff there. And next thing you know, you are in a frazzle making dozens of things, and getting more tense and more tired, and your housework will suffer, and there goes your calm and sweet demeanor, and you've spent all that time trying to make this money. And often when you calculate the time that you have spent doing it and the cost of the materials, you didn't actually make very much. And so if you're able to contribute one or two things, that's fine, but you have to be careful about being frantic about it, because that's the way we women are. We're so dedicated, and if we're going to do one thing and it turns out, well, let's just do 20. And so you have to be very, very guarded and balanced in what you do. So besides the money schemes, you have to also be careful about people who impose on you. Often, because you are a homemaker on your home, people feel like you have time, and you have time, and they will want you to do something for them. Go get something, go do something for them, and next thing you know, you're running around doing things for other people. And so also reduce the possibility of being a target for someone who wants to criticize you. And like I said last time, keep your words to a minimum, and don't give people too much information so that they can't criticize you. And if someone asks you how you are, now see, I've taught a ladies' Bible class for years and years and years, and so we've all kind of learned from each other. We talk about things like this, and one of the things people say is, well, what are you going to do the rest of the day? And you have to be really careful not to be too specific, because somebody is going to start to manipulate that or criticize that or somehow use it against you. Just say that you learn to speak in general terms. You learn to say, well, I'll have to look at my list and see. I'm sure there are a lot of things. And so every now and then you might get somebody in your life who says, when they find out that how independent you are, let's say you're a homemaker, you're doing a lot of things yourself, doing your own food preparation, you're eating fresh food that you prepared yourself. You don't eat things out of boxes or cans, and don't have much reliance on pre-made food. So, or maybe you have learned to fix your own hair, or maybe you are teaching your own children at home, and that there are quite a few people are doing that now. But in the olden days, when we first started homeschooling, every now and then somebody would say something. A lot of the homeschoolers would complain about this. Is someone would say, when the minute you did something yourself that was real independent from other people, for instance, instead of outsourcing everything, you learn to do it yourself. You learn to cut hair. You learn to cook. Uh, you learn to sew, and you're homeschooling. And somebody will say, they'll ask you a question about what you're doing, and it'll be some independent thing that you're doing by yourself that's very creative, and they'll think, she doesn't buy curtains from the store, she makes them herself. And they'll say something like, no one is plotting against you. Or they'll see that you're homeschooling your children, and they'll say, not everything is a conspiracy, you know. Or maybe you are into more natural health, and you don't use a lot of the commercial products, when you get a cold or anything, and they'll say, not everything is a conspiracy. Or maybe you just don't want to cooperate with what everybody else is doing. Maybe you just don't want to go along with something. They'll say, not everything is a conspiracy, And they assume that when they see you doing something yourself and not being reliant on public everything, not being reliant on the experts, or not being reliant on something, they assume that you think you're suspicious of everything. Now, one of the ways that you can keep that at a minimum, and why I say, a lot of you might say, oh, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what they say, but some people don't realize how it cuts you to the heart and how it worries you, and they put those thoughts in your head because they know that it might just worry you forever, and it would reduce your effectiveness, and you won't be able to keep house. You won't be able to sew that beautiful dress or curtain, and you won't be able to really fix a nice meal, because they'll say, no one is plotting against you. You can eat out if you want. You don't have to worry. They're not poisoning you, and they know that those thoughts are also, even if they don't change your mind, they know they can irritate you for a while. And the best thing to do is not to reveal too much. The more you reveal to people, even in your own home, sometimes the more material you give them. So it's best not to do that. And so I have something that I'd like to read to you today. While we're on this subject of people and some of the things they do and say, I want to go and read just another page of the Thinking Toolbox, because I ran across this story of some children that were trying to solve something, and then they just got in an argument, and the next thing you know, they were just fighting with each other. And I wanted to warn you as parents, or even, people in churches and stuff, don't just shut down the argument and just dismiss it, because there's probably somewhere that they could find common ground and understand each other. And I know as children, when we were little, I was from a large family, and my parents' solution was just shut the whole thing down. And of course, the problem would come up over and over again, because one person was attacking the other person instead of the problem that was at hand. Instead of trying to fix something, they would just start to badmouth the other person, and so the parents would just shut it down, and they were weary, and they were hardworking, and they just wouldn't put up with it. And that's okay, but as you develop, you have to understand that there are certain things that you can change and you can help with. So it's from lesson 2. It's called A Discussion, a Disagreement, an Argument, and a Fight. And I read from you last time, 35 lessons that will build your reasoning skills. It's really important for children to build reasoning skills, because what happens is when you just shut down an argument, when you just shut them down when they're objecting to something or trying to talk to you, and you just shut them down, they're not going to develop reasoning skills. So you have to teach them how to do this. And these lessons you can read. And I'm homeschooling you right now. I don't care how old you are. If you're a great-grandmother, you get this book, The Thinking Toolbox, and you read it and educate yourself, because no good leader will require anything of their subjects that they're not willing to do themselves. So that's why I've said, order yourself a homeschool curriculum, order yourself something, or just learn something every day that you could possibly teach. And so, lesson 2. Most conversations can be put into one of 4 categories: a discussion, a disagreement, an argument, or a fight. Let's look at what we mean. Kathy: hello, Roberta. How have things been going? Roberta: fine, but I wish it would rain. My petunias are nearly dried up. There isn't supposed to be any rain today. Kathy: the extended forecast said we'd have rain later this week. This conversation is only a discussion. Kathy and Roberta are sharing information. They both might not have the same information, but they agree with one another. I've talked to you about this before when you get with ladies sometimes, or your relatives or anybody, and you're just saying something casual like, I wish it would rain, and they start to talk back to you and contradict you, and you're just having a fun conversation. You're just enjoying the company, and they start an argument over it by strongly objecting or contradicting. And contradicting is one of the most disagreeable things at the dinner table or with a friend over tea. The contradiction, and some people are just in the habit of contradicting because they just think they're having conversation. That's how they grew up, and that's what the habit that they continue in. But it's very, very disagreeable, and it is like grating your fingernails across a chalkboard. It just upsets everybody. And of course, my answer when anyone starts doing that is what Fanny did in Sense and Sensibility. When she sensed that people were getting disagreeable, she would just say tea, which meant it's time to go for tea. And I don't believe that we drink as much tea as we ought to. We should just say tea. Here is a disagreement. Roberta: oh, I hope so. Where did you hear it was going to rain? Kathy: it was on the Weather Channel. I always watch the Weather Channel for my weather. Roberta: really? I prefer AccuWeather.com. Now you can see that that's going to rankle one person because it's not very agreeable. You don't have to agree with people to be agreeable. I often disagree silently because it's not worth it. It's one of those hills you don't need to die on. Now Roberta has a different opinion with Kathy. Roberta likes AccuWeather.com better than the Weather Channel. They're still having a discussion, but now they disagree. However, neither feels that she needs to convince the other at this point. See, that's where the problem starts, when they feel they need to push their point home and you have to agree with them. Let's see what happens when they try to convince one another. Kathy: I think the Weather Channel is more accurate. It seems like every time they predict a storm, it happens. I wouldn't go to AccuWeather.com if I were you. They don't seem to be accurate. Roberta: not in my experience. I'm sure the Weather Channel is a good source for weather news, but nothing beats AccuWeather.com for accuracy. AccuWeather.com received the Windy Award from the National Meteorologists Association for being the most accurate weather source. Now Roberta and Kathy are giving evidence for what they think. They are having an argument. I know that sounds like a nasty word, argument, but it isn't bad. It just means that Kathy and Roberta think it's appropriate to use evidence and reasoning to convince one another. As long as they talk civilly, there isn't a problem. Someone is presenting an argument anytime he states a viewpoint and gives reasons to support it. Anytime 2 or more people are engaged in stating differing views and reasons for these views, they are having an argument. But it doesn't have to be unpleasant. It can be friendly. Have you ever heard anybody say, well, they don't really have an argument, so all they do is attack? That is the problem today. Kathy, oh really? I bet you made that up. I'll bet there is no National Meteorologist Association. Roberta, I didn't make it up. What are you insinuating? Kathy, you're always making things up to sound smart. If you ask me, you haven't said a true word for years. Roberta, at least I'm not a little hen-clucking gossip like you. I'll take my hat and leave. Kathy, I hope your petunias shrivel up and get eaten by a striped cucumber beetle. Kathy and Roberta are now fighting. This type of conversation is never appropriate. Kathy and Roberta weren't talking about where to go for weather forecasts anymore. They're now attacking and insulting each other. That happens when people don't really have an argument. So they just start attacking, running each other down. Kathy is calling Roberta a liar, and Roberta is calling Kathy a gossip, both nasty names. Now, if this has ever happened to you, and even as older women, both teenagers and older women, somebody starts calling you a gossip, you start to shrivel up because it is so insulting. And of course, we don't want to be like that. And it shuts down, it dismisses you and shuts down the conversation, or they call you a liar. Those are the favorite things to use, call you a liar or call you a gossip. That just means they are shutting you down because they know that you can't, it's hard to defend yourself. And if you did, the conversation would just go on and on and on. There's no clear line where an argument becomes a fight, but anytime both people become strongly emotionally involved or start insulting each other, it is probably a fight. So here's what a fight is. Number one, people are having a discussion anytime they exchange ideas. A disagreement is an exchange of differing views. An argument is an exchange of differing views as well as reasons for these views. A fight is an exchange of personal attacks and insults. So here are some exercises from this book. Identify each of the following examples as a discussion, a disagreement, an argument, or a fight. And they have all the examples. And so there are about 8 of them. And I would be happy to read some of them to you. Let me just read a couple. Mother, Joey, it's time for you to go to bed. Joey, I don't want to go to bed. I want to stay up. So is that a discussion, a disagreement, an argument, or a fight? It's a disagreement. Fred, ouch, the bee stung me. Dirk, that wasn't a bee, that was a wasp. You can tell because bees can fly. The wasp just slithered on the ground. Fred, no, it has to be a bee. It made a rattling noise. Wasps don't rattle before they sting. Dirk, I think it's a wasp. Bees sting with their tails. That wasp bit you. So I think that is a discussion or disagreement. Susie, let's go play house. Cable, I'd rather play store. That'd be a disagreement. But these are great exercises, and all of us, I think as ladies, we need them. We need this too, to see where our weakness is, to see if maybe we cause the problems too. And I think there has to be respect for one another too. And if you get around someone who is strongly opinionated about something, my experience is just let them go and don't even try to contradict them, because they love to engage you in an argument, because that's where they get their energy from. So I also think it's very rude when someone says something for you to answer, well, I don't want to talk about it. That's very rude. That is very rude. Someone says something, it's polite to go, yeah, interesting. Or, you know, if you don't want to engage in the conversation, but you never say, well, I don't want to talk about it. And that probably is that is a very dismissive thing to do. All right, I'm going to read something to you today. Oh, first I want to give you your challenge, and it's the challenge that I took today for myself, and I will write it out on the blog so you can see it. Those of you who don't want to watch the video or have trouble with videos, you can at least go look at the challenge. So the challenge today is read something aloud that has meaning to you. Just read it aloud. And the reason I did that is I needed to say something aloud and practice my speech. I just did that because I have a lot of things that I read that are inspiring to me, but they don't stay in my mind as well as when I say them aloud. So read something aloud, even just a sentence, a verse, anything. Just read it aloud. think that, remember the movie Seven Brides for Seven Brothers? And Millie was really had not prepared to take care of these 7 men that were brothers just because she married one of them. And she was not aware that she was going to be taken advantage of, and she was trying to get them all to eat right and clean up, and she went to her room and she opened her Bible and she read a verse out loud to herself. Neither cast ye pearls before swine. And she read it to herself. So I thought that was significant. So the challenge today is to read something aloud and read it with expression. Also to thank the Lord for even the worst problem. Just thank the Lord. Practice that, and amazing how that can motivate you and lift your mood. I've tested all these out today already. Exercise 5 minutes. I did one of the sit in your chair exercise, and it was really good. And it also helps you if you have trouble with your balance. I'd be willing to put a link to the. I follow the Fabulous 50s because those are the exercises I can do and that work for me. I did one of her 5-minute or 10-minute chair sitting in a chair exercise, and also to do your list, make a list and try to follow it. Just a few things on that short piece of paper and follow it. The other thing is clean out one thing. You know, I cleaned out today. I always have this little box, little basket, and it's got my toothbrush and my floss and all my stuff in it, and it's got my hairbrush, and it's got a few things that I use, skincare things on it, and I'm just gonna throw it out, just throw it in there and lock it away. And today, when I was using it afterwards, I got it out, I cleaned all the brushes, I washed out the container with a plastic basket, and I wiped down all the ingredients and all the tubes of things that go back in there and put it back. So clean out your self-care box. And I had my my hair clips and everything. Everything was cleaned and washed, and I even washed my comb. So do that, and I will put all that down so you can remember. So I'm going to read you one last thing before I go. I had trouble with my video maker last time. It shut down after about an hour and didn't let me read this, and it's called Refined Speech for Christian Women. It's on the sidebar of my blog, and I believe I've even put a place where you can print it out. Will turn out like this. And I wrote this in '07, back in the olden days. And it's about being careful what we say, and you'll see where this is going. We love to have serenity in the home, so we can clean and beautify and add all kinds of elegant touches, don't we? We are particular or picky about where things are placed or what color they are because we want everything in the house to have a harmonious feel to it. We want our homes to be places of peace and rest. By the way, I hope you're getting something done. Our speech should be as refined and as beautiful as the things we value at home. When something is refined, the dross, the dirt, and the impurities are removed so that the product is pure and clean. You might look up the word refine or refinement, and you'll find out a lot about how silver is refined.